On to another huge disappointment. Another team that's probably going to get me riled up. The Jets. This is probably one of the biggest disappointments I can remember in a while. When you look at the whole structure of the team and the roster, like, this is easily a playoff caliber roster. Isn't, though. Why is that? Is it just because of Aaron Rodgers? No. Is a lot of it because of Aaron Rodgers? Yeah. And, there's still Jets fans that will fight me over this take and will fight me over this, and they'll look at his stats and be like, they'll point to his stats and just, like, try to absolve him all of blame. And it's like, are you brainwashed? Like, what has he been... Do you watch his... Like, does he post things I don't know about on the Pat... Or does he go on the Pat McAfee show and brainwash his fans or something? This conversation does start with Aaron Rodgers, and really quickly, I will go over my expectations of them going into this season. I thought this was going to be a 9 to 10 win team, and maybe get in the playoffs. I looked at this roster and said, this is a Super Bowl caliber roster. I don't believe they're going to go anywhere that far because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to try to control too much, and Nathaniel Hackett is a horrible offensive coordinator. It's too much of the Aaron Rodgers show going on. Robert Saleh is a fine coach, but he wasn't equipped to get as much out of this roster as he could have, and that's true. That was true, despite the fact that they probably shouldn't have fired him. That's true. He didn't have what it takes to get enough out of Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams and, the offensive line they had. And look, you look at, like, the offensive line, they haven't been playing extremely well this season, no. But you also look at how this season has been going, and I look at someone like Tyron Smith. I fully believe he's just there for the paycheck and then to retire. I don't think he cares anymore. And why do you think that is? Well, look at the situation they're in. Their coach, quarterback, and GM are all the same person. It's Aaron Rodgers. Honestly, I mean, when you do look at the offensive line, you look at the PFF grades, you look at the stats and everything, it's not been as bad as people are saying. So why am I blaming Aaron Rodgers for all this? I know I need to make, some examples for this claim I'm making. Well, this is a guy that came into this program and wanted control, and he wanted to not necessarily come in and say, I want to be the GM, I want to be the coach, blah blah blah, or anything. I don't trust Aaron Rodgers as a person. When I look at him talk in pressers, he seems like a very fake individual. I don't like Aaron Rodgers very much. Historically, he's been a top player, but some of the reasons I think he's a huge reason to blame for all this, he brought in most of this team. A lot of this team he did. And I fully believe he was a huge part in them firing Robert Saleh, which now you're seeing those same people saying that will excuse Aaron Rodgers and place the blame elsewhere. Why do you think the defense is so bad? That's what they go to, is saying that, what is he supposed to do when the defense is as bad as his? Why do you think the defense is that bad? Is it maybe because your defensive-minded head coach is fired now? And why do you think he got fired? I guarantee you Aaron Rodgers played a hand in that. A huge hand in that. So you wonder why, your defense is bad and why this team has horrible management skills to finish and win games. Because that's the other thing I keep seeing is people saying this team is like 5, 6, 7 plays away from being 8-4, being 9-3 or whatever. Part of being a team that wins those games is having a head coach and having a well-run organization, having a well-run team. This team has zero cohesion on offense or defense. It has zero management and chemistry whatsoever. It has no direction. It's a bunch of really highly touted, highly valuable players like Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams. Offensive line, like I mentioned, is underrated. And then Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he's washed. It's the fact that there's no sense of direction for this team whatsoever. People keep blaming things like management. Well, you fired the management. The GM and coach are gone. And you're expecting this interim guy to step up and do it. And there's so much talent on this team that is being wasted because, as I've been saying throughout this whole video, coaching matters. It matters a lot. And whether Saleh should have been fired or not doesn't matter, because once he does get fired, you put yourself in this position where you don't have one of the most important aspects of any good and quality team. You don't have a head coach. And when you have an offensive coordinator like Nathaniel Hackett, or had, you don't have anything easy on offense. You don't have any drawn up plays. The offense today for the Jets is Aaron goes to the line of scrimmage, looks around, looks at the defense, and calls a bunch of audibles into what he wants based on what he sees. And he wants everyone to read his mind and know that he wants Mike Williams to catch it on the red line. That's the offense. No other team in the league does that. No other team in the league does that and is successful, for sure. If any other team does anything similar to that, they're not successful. Now, having a quarterback that, because this is something Tom Brady could do, right? Like he'd get his play calls, but then he'd see, teams in cover 2 or whatever. So he's like, okay, I got a cover 2 beater. I want to go to. We're gonna adjust this and fire it off. Well, Tom Brady played on the same team for well over a decade. Had a coach that trusted him. Had players he built relationships with. Had chemistry built with them. Had receivers that knew what he meant because he impounded it into their brain during practice because he was at practices. He was actually at practice and not on vacation. Sound familiar? Tom Brady had those things. Aaron Rodgers came in, tore his Achilles, sat a year, whatever, came back this season, and just expected everyone to be able to read his mind. And this is not a real football team, what we have here. This is, it's backyard football. It's an attempt at, it's like trying to win the Turkey Bowl at Thanksgiving with your brothers and your uncle or whatever, where you're drawing up plays on your hand or whatever. Because you got rid of the consistency. You got rid of the easy buttons of having an offensive coordinator that maybe sometimes Aaron Rodgers isn't able to see what's going on and see what's the best play call here. He shouldn't be making those calls all the time anyways, but maybe he isn't. So when you have a good coordinator that can make that play call, that's an easy button, it really helps out the team and really helps move forward. So, and I was talking a bunch about Nathaniel Hackett. Who brought in Nathaniel Hackett? Why did Nathaniel Hackett go to the Jets? Who made that decision? It was Aaron Rodgers. So, listen, I know this whole thing is a hit piece on him, and people are just going to call me a hater, and they're going to be like, he's so much more successful than you. I know he's more successful than me. I know he has a ring. I know he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. I still think he's one of the most talented, most gifted quarterbacks of all time. I don't think this last couple seasons take away from that. He still is will still be considered one of the best quarterbacks of all time. That fact doesn't take away from what he's doing right now, which is an absolute atrocity. And he's completely just thrown the Jets franchise on their head, which was already run horribly. So it's not like I care about what the Jets franchise does and the ownership or whatever. I've never been a fan of them, but here's what I do want to say. I'm not projecting bias. I know I just said I don't really care or have any love for the Jets necessarily, but I'm not a biased person when it comes to football. I'm calling what I see, and he's really thrown the Jets franchise on their head with promises of greatness and just give me the reins and let me take over, and I'll get you your ring. And it's gone horribly. So what do the Jets do now? Get rid of Aaron Rodgers. You will not get a worthwhile coach as long as he is on the team. And Aaron Rodgers is not a good coach. So that's the first thing. And then I'd say pair a new QB with a good coach, which that goes in hand with the last thing I just said there. Get a new quarterback and get a new coach. Pretty simple there. There's some other things that need to be addressed. You can't address those until you fix the absolute disgusting, horrible mess you've made this season. You cannot address the offensive line and the fact that Garrett Wilson wants out. You can't address those things until you fix the two I just mentioned, because no one's going to want to be a part of this. Ben Johnson will not be a part of this. Brian Flores will not be a part of this. Joe Brady will not be a part of this. They know better, because it's their career on the line when they get there, and then it's what Aaron says. It's Aaron's way or the highway, and all of a sudden they're 3-9 again. So that's what you do with the Jets.